Alright, hello everybody. I hope you've been having good luck getting started on your research paper, finding some sources, looking through the databases. And this video today is going to be about what to do with those articles once you've found them. Some approaches you can take to kind of sorting out what's going to be useful, what might not be so much. So at this point, you've probably found a variety of sources. So you might have found academic journal articles, you might have found some ebooks in the databases as well, you might have found statistics, you might have found newspaper articles or reports about Memphis. And remember that if at any point you're having trouble finding these things, you can ask me and we can work out some search terms or how you might look for stuff. You might leave a message in the Ask a Librarian discussion board, or you might make an appointment with the library, like a research consultation where they can help you learn how to find some stuff. So, operating now under the impression you've been having okay luck finding some sources. So, as you've been looking for these, you probably haven't been reading all of them all the way through. That would take forever. You might have been using the abstracts or the summaries to get a sense of what the article is about and skimming to make sure it's useful. And so, for example here, when I'm looking up articles about food deserts, this title looked like it was going to be pretty good. I clicked on it, the summary tells me, well, it's actually about rural areas, which is not going to be any use to me if I'm writing about cities. So I know I can just stop looking at that one and move on. That's kind of the easy sorting out, is it related to what you're talking about or not? What we're going to do is talk now about some ways that you might refine your argument based on what you find, and then go about sorting those articles into making a paper. So, let's say that I am writing a paper about food deserts in Memphis. One thing I might do as I'm approaching, okay, how am I going to organize all this information, is kind of make a mind map. So listing out information I've found about, okay, here's my main topic, and then maybe I've got some definitions, some basic facts, stuff like that. So definitions, how often, where they occur, some causes. And I've also got stuff about Memphis. So where are food deserts in Memphis? What's causing them? Are the causes the same? Those are kind of maybe the general categories stuff is going to fall into. So the Memphis stuff, definition stuff, the academic argument stuff. Because when you're reading all of these research papers that are in the databases, all those authors are making arguments. So they're arguing, this is what's causing food deserts, or something like that. So you might also, if it works for you, make a list, but somehow you probably got to figure out things you want to find, things that might be important, and ways that you're going to find the stuff that you don't have. So remember that you're aiming to make an argument. Right now you have a research question. So what are the impacts of food deserts in Memphis? That is eventually going to merge into your thesis statement. The impact of food deserts in Memphis is whatever. We don't know what the answer is yet. We don't know what we're going to argue because we haven't done enough research at this point. Right now, we're just kind of in the gathering information, seeing what it's possible to argue phase. So, your argument is going to be shaped by the research that's available. So, as I looked through food desert articles in the databases, I saw there were a bunch of different kinds of them. So, there were a bunch about how they impacted children, there were a bunch about how they impacted women, there were a fair number about how food deserts and COVID-19 have proved to be a disaster. I also found a bunch about food deserts negatively impacting mental health, and I thought that was a really interesting topic there. I'm interested in that, so I narrowed my focus to that, from impacts of food deserts in Memphis in general to on mental health specifically. So, it can also go the other way there. Right, if you find there's absolutely no academic research about your topic, you might need to shift it or broaden it a little bit. We can talk about ways to do that if you're having trouble. So let's say I have found in my food desert research all of these articles. So I have found a couple different kinds of academic articles. So one about what causes food deserts in South Carolina, one about the relationship between food deserts and major depression, one about food deserts and mental illness, and one about what food deserts are, kind of how they're caused. I've also found some Memphis sources, so a web article with maps explaining where food deserts are located. As a big bonus, it also mentions mental illnesses there. That source, once I checked their sources, led me to some statistics about food deserts in Memphis. I found a newspaper article about how physical and mental illnesses are happening in low-income Memphis areas, which is the same place that this article says those food deserts are. And I also found a Memphis Flyer article generally about food deserts in Memphis, what's being done about them. So we've got all these articles kind of circling around this main idea of food deserts in Memphis. And so there are a variety of ways you could start to kind of put that together, see what you have and what you might need. So this is what I have. When I'm writing research paper, my brain works in color coding, but you might have your own system. But this is generally what each of these articles is about, so I can kind of think about how I might put this together. So I have all these different things. I do like a short summary of each one so I can see how I can use the different pieces. Then what you might do is kind of start seeing, okay, how could that work as an argument? So you might start kind of think of a general outline or a way you would like your paper to move to see if you have enough stuff to make it make sense. So I'm writing some kind of intro, introducing my thesis, Memphis food deserts causing mental health problems. So that's a pretty specific area. So one thing that I know I want to do is provide context, like you did in the rhetorical analysis paper. I want to make sure my reader and I are operating on the same page. So I'm going to borrow from this first article here, explanation of what food deserts do and how they form. And I'm going to explain to the reader, okay, here's what a food desert is, here's the definition, here's a general overview of what happens to create these situations. So to show the reader specifically how that's formed in Memphis, I'm going to use the South Carolina example from this article as kind of a case study to show the reader how it happens in an actual place. And then I'm going to use this background on where Memphis food deserts are located to show that the same thing is happening in Memphis. So I'm using here a variety of academic and that local source to connect the points and prove it. So I'll explain these are the same low-income Memphis areas that are having the mental health crises that's again coming from the local source there. I can move into how this damage is being done, so explaining what the mental health crisis looks like, explaining how food deserts impact mental health, and I can reinforce that thesis that what these articles describe about how food deserts impact mental health, the general academic ones, how that same process is happening in Memphis. So as you're creating this, you might realize, oh my, something that would be really helpful to my reader to include would be something else. Maybe you need another example. Maybe you realize, oh, I don't have the definition, that's something I should define. I realize here I don't have anything about what's being done about it or if anything's being done. If that's something I want to add, I might look into what groups are doing, try to find some local sources about that, maybe an additional academic source about whether that seems likely to be helpful. So kind of figuring out what you have, sorting out what you still might need to be able to put a paper together. So at this point, I'll go conduct that search for anything I still might need, make sure that I read and understand my articles. I'll go through them and read them at this point completely, and I'll start pulling quotes. So I do this, and you don't have to do it this way. This is just a way that I've found is really helpful to do it. I create a separate document, create the full citation for each article, and start pulling quotes that might help me support my points. So that ends up looking a little bit like this. The color coding is a little crazy here, but I pull long quotes so I can just copy and paste whichever little sections are helpful later, so I've already done that work for myself. And make sure as you go through to keep track of which article, which quote is coming from, so keep up with the inline citations. So I do all of that before I start writing anything. we're going to practice more of this how to analyze articles, figure out what to use them for in class on Wednesday the 10th. So you have 400 words of something due on that Wednesday. So that might be a rough outline, an annotated bibliography, so start looking at some sources, what they're about, what you might use them for, some notes summarizing some sources, or a paragraph or two starting to explain something. So it's going to be something to at least get you started. Okay, so that is a lot of information. We're going to keep practicing together, and feel free to email me if you have any questions. We can set up another conference if you're having a problem as you move forward. So once you've reached this point, if you could email me, would you rather go to space or to the bottom of the ocean? So I know you watched this. If you have any questions or concerns, anything like that, please let me know, and I will see you on Wednesday the 10th. If that's going to be a problem for you because of work schedules or anything like that, please let me know. Okay, have a good, really short little wellness break.